Good morning, everyone. Anyone seen this presentation before? And the wedding happened back in May, so I figured I'd ask. No one's seen it? We've done this in quite a few places. So, good morning. My name is Josh Wiggins, Chief Commercial Officer of GrayMeta. And I'm going to talk this morning about a project we did for Sky with some partners, and also talk about things that we've done since the royal wedding, leveraging machine learning and content. So back in March this year, we had a meeting with Sky, and the objective that they had around the royal wedding was to do something a little bit different, with the goal of creating a mobile-first experience that would allow everybody away from the big screen to get a better understanding of who was going to the wedding, who they were, a bit of information about them, mobile-first. So they wanted to do this, and they wanted to do it as near as to live as possible. So we signed up for the project. The key point here is we were about 3 months out from the wedding. So those of you that have worked on projects that are live, you know normally you need a bit of time on your side. And there was many variables tied to this. So there's a lot of challenges ahead when we did this. One of those challenges, and this is a slide that actually came up in the initial meeting, is there was two pictures that came up. They said, how are we going to make sure that we don't get people wrong? Because this is going to go really kind of south if we do a poor job. So they showed us this slide of the kind of chihuahuas and the muffins and how machine learning doesn't always work. We actually did this presentation last week in Mexico City, and it had a whole different meaning, let me tell you, and I did not realize until we did it, because I guess there's a lot of chihuahuas in Mexico City. So there was this, and then they also had this slide they showed us of the King of Spain and a football player called Eric Cantona that looked very similar. So if machine learning gets it wrong, you're going to end up with a lot of false positives. So we knew we were going to walk into some challenges. So in doing that, we had to really manage expectations, as with kind of any deliverable in project. So the key thing was there was a lot of blue sky ideas, like there is with AI and machine learning. Right? There's a lot of pessimism. There's a lot of kind of skeptics out there. So we really wanted to lock down what was the deliverable for the project and not kind of stray away from it. Timelines were definitely not on our side. As I said, it was around 3 months. And we had to make sure that we didn't have scope creep. As this idea got evangelized right up to the top brass of Sky, there was new things that were getting mentioned. Well, what if we could do this? What if we could do that? So it was so important to lock down the scope. And we also knew that we were coming in as a new solution provider in a very big environment with a lot of existing and incumbent vendors. So one of the key things we had to do is say that if we run into an incumbent vendor or technology that isn't going to help us succeed here, we need to be able to move around it and circumvent it. So one of the key things that Sky agreed was if we ran into those challenges, we could bring in another vendor or another technology, and that was key to pulling this off in the 3-month period. So the 3 months that we had, there was a lot that needed to happen, and we kind of ran a mini RFP or RFI in doing this. So we had to get in quickly. We understood the workflow. There was a lot of analysis that needed to happen in terms of the location, the people, the camera, the technology, the incumbent vendors, commercial deals. So we were able to break it down into these areas of kind of the analysis of the problem, the vendors that we could work with, design the workflow. We knew that was going to be a big part of it, and then the testing and the learning, the machine learning as well. The goal, when they said we want to do live, like real time, we said that's not going to happen, but we can get this pretty close. So the goal was to be able to do from the camera lens of someone coming in frame at the chapel to be able to deliver to the consumer on the app within 60 seconds. We were able to do that. It turns out we actually added a QC layer on top because this was a live event for a big broadcast that added another 45 seconds. I'm going to show you how that worked. So again, very fast turnaround from chapel directly to the web app. So what we did ahead of time is there's a slight problem here with facial recognition is we didn't actually know who was going. So anyone that knows enough about facial recognition or machine learning, you need to be able to train it and understand it. So no one knew who was going to the wedding. So we worked very closely with the editorial team at Sky News, and we came up with a list of about 800 people that we thought may go. So in doing that, we were able to go and get stock footage. We were able to go into the Sky archives, start to put together the kind of 8 to 14 images of all the people we thought would go. Then as the wedding got closer, kind of, I think it was mid or early April time, it was announced that only people that Harry and Meghan knew were actually going to go to the wedding. So that meant, well, we got to have a whole different list now, and it became a little bit easier to work with. So we were constantly working to create the bios, get the training data, and there was a lot of issues here where people in public light of photos look very different than when they go to a wedding. Hairdos, kind of headdress, all that type of thing. So we, ahead of time, we built the models and the bios for everybody. A lot of practice was done. I mean, we did 3 pretend weddings. This was actually us out filming. This is Hugh, the customer at Sky, and we went to the chapel a couple of times because we needed to know where the camera was going to be. We needed to understand kind of the environmentals that were going on. This is Hugh walking up, and we knew that we'd be getting facial shots, side profiles. By the way, that lady that ran out, the Korean lady there, she stole something from the church, and the lady in red chased her. So People wonder what happened there. Like, so don't take anything from the chapel if you go there. That's what happened. So we went and we were trying, he was walking away. So we needed to understand, and we learned early on that this couldn't all be, again, it's like frontal shots of people. There was going to be a lot of side shots. People were going to be obscuring people. So we had to consider that when we were building the face models. So the live event workflow, what we did is the camera wasn't from Sky. So it was a third-party camera feed coming from BBC. They believed it was going to be a fixed camera lens, which turned out it wasn't. BBC brought that in. We broke it down using the Elemental encoder solution into 8-second video chunks. So we didn't process the whole live video. One of the things that our company does is we still process images. We don't process the video when we run machine learning. So we broke it down into 8-second chunks, and this was all time-based from the camera. And what we did is we brought that back in. We ran the facial recognition, did all the automated creation, packaged that back up, and stitched the time code back in so that the complete package would go back out, up into Amazon Cloud, leveraging CloudFront, and then UI-centric that's here in the vendor area, that's who we selected to build the last mile application. So UI-centric, we're able to take all the time code, along with all the X and Y coordinates that we'd broken down into 8-second chunks, packaged it all back up, and then that was delivered in the 60 seconds plus 45 seconds for QC out to the live event. So UI-centric did a great job with that app. And one of the things we had to do, I mean, in the 3-month window, there was no way we were going to be able to replumb the Sky mobile app environment. So all it was a link in the live app. They didn't want to download a new app that then brought them out to a rich web page. That was how we did it, and that's how we got a better take rate rather than installing an app. So the curation. So one of the things that happened early on is they said, well, we need our news team involved. We don't just trust this. We want to be able to, the people that it misses or the side profiles, we want to capture them and be able to say who it is, even if the facial recognition technology didn't capture them. So we didn't have this before the wedding. We built a module of our platform called Live Curation. And what it was doing, I'm going to show you the video here. And this was before we ran the model. So you're going to see that Harry and Elton John look a little bit similar. So this is our 45-second window that we had. So this was, I think, 3.5 operators were doing this during the wedding. And what was happening is as those feeds were coming in real time, it was finding the faces and matching to who it thought it was. And this actually happens without a model, by the way. So if you use open machine learning, Prince Harry and Elton look pretty similar. It must be like hair or nose or something. So this allows them to basically block and review things going out to the live camera. Now, what they were able to do later after the wedding is they went back to some of the misses, recurated them, and that became part of the VOD experience. So this is the live curation that we had, and that added the 45 seconds on top of the 60-second end-to-end. So that was the curation module that they had, and Sky actually used that. It wasn't like we had operators, they had their team doing that. The resource that was involved, so we took over kind of PMO or project management of this with Sky. Didn't take a lot of resource, it took the right. Most of the effort was at the beginning of making sure we had the right people involved from Amazon Elemental, Sky, and UI-centric. We probably ran a project call of about 10 to 12 people every week that was going on. So it didn't take a lot of resource, it was the right resource. And it's also point out this was happening kind of London and Los Angeles, so we had teams spread across. We're based in LA, and we had someone on site at Sky. So not a big drain on resource, but everyone was very clear back to the deliverables and what we were going to do, so we didn't have scope creep with resource as well. So the training data, those of you that have played around with machine learning, I mean, training data is key. So one of the things that we did is we sourced a lot of the images from stock footage. We knew that this would be an event where kind of people would be dressed up, looking pretty smart. So we did stock footage. Then we went back into a lot of the archive library that Sky had, because a lot of these people have been to weddings before, or they've been featured on the news in different stories. So they went back and we did a bit of manual scraping to get the training set in place. And then it was actually Sky that built their own bio. So just like a synopsis of a TV show, they built bios explaining why these people might be there and their relationship to Harry and Meghan. So that was all done by Sky. There were several hurdles that we had. So in the live curation, there were some identical twins, niece of Princess Diana, so that was something we had to work around. We did a lot of training with the team. This was the other fake wedding that we did at Sky to understand how headdress and umbrellas might impact, because weather was a challenge. So we did a whole session to understand how would facial recognition work with umbrellas as well as hats. Then a few kind of wonky things that happened is the guy had the wonky nose. He's a rugby player in England, and he actually had a nose job 2 weeks before the wedding. So that meant that we had to go back and kind of retrain him, because the points that it was picking up on the faces would look at something like the nose and give us a lower degree of confidence. And then we had things like crazy hats that were happening. The workflow at a high level, again, content acquisition would come through. The orange boxes are the AWS Elemental. We did the machine learning and the facial recognition and the curation. We also had a social tie-in that was used. So what we did is we took the index of all the people and we linked that back to social and Instagram. So in real time, if someone was trending that, oh my God, so-and-so was at the wedding, we didn't expect it, and you were seeing a big spike in that, we have an Adobe Premiere integration, and what that would allow is Sky, to be honest, they didn't do a lot of this because they didn't have the resource. It meant that they could quickly go and jump on a certain person, grab all that footage and go back and cut a little bit of a clip to push out onto their social platform. So we had the social tie-in to see what people thought about the people attending. And then the streaming was using Elemental. And then the analytics, and I've got some of the results from Sky that I can share with you. So end-to-end, I think we've kind of covered this. It was all the way through. And again, the key thing here is it used existing technology. We didn't have to build anything from scratch apart from our curation UI in that 3-month period. The end user experience, again, it was designed to be very clean, UI-centric, built this, leveraging our API to get the video and the metadata, time-based. It was mobile first. Got an example here. They should play side by side, I think. Maybe the second one won't. There you go. So basically, the live event that was happening, you had all the people coming in, it would auto-show who they were, but then on the VOD one, where they had more traffic, you got all the bios, and you're able to click back and see who was coming in and see the exact moment where they came into the chapel. So that was it, looking at on a web browser versus a mobile phone. So the kind of key takeaways here is, again, very short time window. We found that this is kind of an order of priority. The communication and coordination was key, more so than the technology. We leveraged existing technology that was there, and we kind of adjusted it for these workflows, training data, and having that level of human curation on top of the machine learning and AI was key. A lot of people think, well, why bother having the human side if you're going to do the AI? We were able to show that by not adding more resource from Sky, they were able to get more done with the same team that would have been working on that event, even if we weren't doing this project for them. And some of the numbers here, so how did it perform? Sky shared this at a number of events. So the accuracy here, so what that meant is 30% or 20% of those was obscured or low bit rate, or someone walking in front of someone. So those were excluded and they never went out. So we never had anyone wrong delivered to the consumer experience. Great viewership around the world. Page views was good, and you can see on the VOD and the arrivals. So for what they didn't make this an advertising platform. It was done to drive awareness to Sky. They've leveraged a couple of awards out of this, which has helped their broader business around advertising and deals that they've done. And we're now working with Sky on some other projects and other people around the world to do with politics and sporting using this same workflow. We've packaged this up with Amazon. We think we can do a deployment anywhere from 6 to 9 weeks. If you know the people that are coming, and we've deployed this where people can do it within their Amazon environment. So we've learned a lot of things since doing that. So quick kind of question here, who's using machine learning and AI in their business? I mean, is there anyone here using recognition, building their own models? Anyone a data scientist? No? Us? Anyone want to use it? Okay, good. Anyone think it's full of blah and don't want it? Okay, good. So, so what's happened since May? But be honest, when we did this project, it was hard, right? Some things didn't go to plan, and we worked through and we kind of made it right. There's a few things we've done since. So just to give a bit of background on us and the things we've been doing since the wedding around AI, our goal is to do one of these 4 things, is to help customers find their assets better, link platforms together, and that's what we do, a lot of integrations with different systems with this data, drive consumption of assets, or help people move to the cloud. So some other scenarios that we've been working on, we've talked about Sky and what it was doing. And really what it did is it used faces and people. So it had a very minimal use of machine learning and AI, but it was key to this event. It was about who was coming to that. So since then, we've been working on some other projects, but it needed a bit more help on the facial recognition. So we created something since the royal wedding called AI Studio. And we wish we had this during the wedding, because as the faces were coming in and the side profiles, we need to quickly update those models. So what we've done is created something called AI Studio that we're doing faces and also logos and adding other things as well that allows us, or the customer on the fly, within a web browser with no machine learning experience or credentials, to quickly train models and improve them. So what we set out to do since the wedding was come up with a way where you can very easily build face training models. You can retrain and improve them as people start to look different. We've even got this to the level where on certain movies, we've identified a stunt double versus the character. when they're dressed up as that character. So the level that we've got is about 131 points of reference around the face, which is allowing us to spot a stunt double versus the actual character. And then the big one is kind of finding a needle in a haystack. So when we go through these massive libraries, and they talked about it earlier, in the earlier session, is automatically finding the faces in the libraries, even if you don't need to know who they are yet. And then we can go back and quickly find those people, train them to say that it's John Smith, and it will go and find every moment of where John Smith exists. These are the things that we wish we had during the wedding. So another example of a project using the same type of technology, again, not for live, but it's an example of where more machine learning is being used. Video Fashion is a large library out of New York, a customer of ours. They've got a massive library, and they're trying to find celebrities and models and designers and stories and what things have been spoke about so that they can cut production footage, they can sell their content. So what we've done, using the same workflow, they do things like the Met Gala, live fashion week footage, bridal week, is that same technology is gonna already know all the people that are coming, unlike the wedding, and be able to do this for monetization as well. So that's another example. Using more technology. Emotion, are they happy or sad? Looking for logos and brands. Natural language description is, what are they doing? Gianni Versace walking down the road talking to Naomi Campbell. You're going to get that metadata automatically versus just random tags that say person, man, hair, outside. And then another one that is really interesting, and I think they touched on it on the last panel, is around how do you really use this metadata in monetization? So something that we've been doing with Channel 4, and they've been speaking to different networks around the world on this, is we're using the same kind of workflow, but it's not live, and we're going through all of the linear programming that Channel 4 has and generating the same type of metadata. But what we're doing there is, in this show, it's catastrophe that they have. This is two adults in a bedroom, making out, being happy, drinking wine. So why do they want to know that that's happening in season 2 on Friday at 7 o'clock? Because that scene before the first ad break now allows them to go out and sell that ad spot to Match.com at a higher unit than just generic. So what's starting to happen is we're seeing that broadcasters, OTT and linear, traditional, are trying to understand what's inside their programming to actually insert and drive a better ad placement. So this is another example, again, using the faces, the sentiment, the words, and the tags to actually drive monetization. So just some other examples that we had here that we wanted to show. And again, as an example here, these are actually done with Amazon, but these are all technologies that exist, and what we're able to do is accelerate, taking it from a lot of potential into actual reality, where the customer can start to see return on their investment and actually put it into a solution versus just playing around with tools and tech. Just another example here, any of you that are in the editorial world, we're trying to make it so that wherever the users or the business problem exists in those tools or platforms, that this type of metadata from machine learning can go to that destination. So if you're an editor, you're going to want your data in Adobe Premiere. If you're in the analytics BI team, you're going to want it in your analytics platform. We have customers that have integrated this same type of data into Salesforce. So if you've built applications on Force.com or Social Studio, you want to be able to bring that data in. So just another example there. So that's all that I have. Definitely didn't have an hour worth here, but the takeaway here is you need to focus on the metadata. For the wedding, it was just faces and people. As you've seen, there's other examples here of metadata that's very easy to create, and you need to get it into your business and onto the content so that it can be leveraged. So with that, we've got plenty of time, and any questions? No questions? So, again, it's a practical real-world example. It's someone decided, they just said, let's do something here. And I think the takeaway is that you shouldn't be scared of this stuff, and you want to start trying to figure out how you can use it, or it will kind of define, kind of end up what you're going to be doing in a year. Like it's coming, and don't be scared of it. And I think it's pretty easy to find some use cases. And also don't be scared to kind of fail, or maybe something doesn't turn out, but at least you've done the effort internally to understand why the business can benefit from it. And then maybe 9 months from now, that technology gets better so you can actually use it and leverage it. Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.